and welcome to Cathy and Dave's Hobby Hangouts. I'm Cathy this day. And as ever, we will be doing some crafting stuff, talking about what we've read, and then going on to our main topic, which this week is CBeebies shows, because that's the thing we have quite a lot of information about.
Well, yes, because small person in the house. So. Yeah. Sorry about not being here last week. Toddler is plague bringer.
Well, it was just a cold. It wasn't COVID. Like,
okay,
yes. I don't say plague casually anymore.
Okay. Toddler was
He was sniffly, and then we both got the cold.
Has been to nursery. Nursery is a place of colds and other. And it was we got nice, cute pictures and a cold from nursery.
Sure. Yes.
So yes, we weren't feeling particularly up to it last week. I don't really think, if you're watching, you don't really want to watch us sniffling and blowing our nose and sneezing a lot.
I mean, that's generally unappealing, and I feel like the way things are at the moment, it's just basically a nightmare.
Coughing would be more. He says he's about to cough. Anyway, how have you been? Other than a cold.
Well, yeah, it was slightly bad timing because the cold kind of came on the night before we went back to work after having had a little bit of leave, and it was also the one day I had to go into my office for the first time in 6 months because we all have to clear our desks because we have got a clean desk policy. So we had to clear everything, and there was a big skip outside with tons of stuff in, but I thought that seems wasteful. I'm just going to take a lot of the stuff home because I could still, like all the stationery, I could still use. I'm not sure about the paperwork, I need to actually check that, but a lot of it could be recycled, but I can recycle it from here. But yeah, so I got home loads of stuff that we can make into a desk, and there's stuff like there were stickers for out trays and in trays and things, which I won't use, but our little one likes stickers, and he can't read, so he could just use some stickers. Like, yeah. So that was alright, but I think doing that didn't help with the cold, because you got over the cold quite quickly, and then I was like, felt rubbish for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, usually I get over them a bit quicker, but yeah. But no, we found the weekend, and I've got quite a bit of stuff done this month, I feel like, so that's good.
Have been productive.
Also though, while we had the cold, we also had roofers in as well, so it was at times a bit noisy, but it did mean that we got some stuff we'd been a bit concerned about sorted, so that's good. So I think I'm generally right. I'm feeling a bit low mood today. I think that's partly because stuff's changed at my work, like we had to clear out our desks, because next week we're going to start being in the office a little bit, well, kind of half the time, and there's been ways that things haven't been handled the best, and admittedly my employees have so far during this whole thing been pretty good, but then there's also an element of the way they're handling stuff kind of going back that I think is making people not very happy, and so there's kind of that mood to things a bit. And also just, I suppose it's a change coming. I probably haven't quite. I need to sit down and make a list of what I need to take in and what I'm going to eat and things, because it's not like just going back to the office normally. You have to take everything in and take it home at the end of the day. You can't leave anything because we're now sharing desks on different, like, somebody else will have my desk on days I'm not in, so we have to make sure everything's clean and stuff, and you can't use the microwave. So, but yeah, I think it's just a change coming. Also, it might be that 6 month wall that was being like mentioned on Twitter. There's a woman called Dr. I think it's Aisha Ahmed, who obviously does some sort of work in disaster zones, and she tweeted something, a sort of thread a few days ago about how when you're 6 months into something like that, you kind of hit a wall and you feel a bit rubbish, but that's just how it is, and you mustn't sort of feel bad about it, and you know, you just have to accept that's how it is, and all the stuff that got you through the first 6 months is still within you to get you through the rest of it. And I've seen a lot of people sharing it, obviously on Twitter, but also on Facebook and places. It was quite comforting, so I don't know if maybe it's just that.
May well be.
Yeah. But yeah, how are you?
I'm okay. I will be in a library tomorrow with the doors open, letting people in. Ooh. Which is new territory. I will be... I mean, it sounds daft to say new territory, but it's the first time in 6 months that we will have the doors open and letting people in. So yes, we have... we've been preparing our libraries by putting spikes everywhere. Basically, we're trying to make them as inhospitable as possible to discourage people from staying too long in the building, because it's the easiest way of making sure that we can then clean everything afterwards. So there are no chairs, there are no tables, there are leaflets, there are...
Are leaflets inhospitable?
No, but they're all out of date, so... anything we've got to clean, anything people might touch that we then have to then clean, got to go. If someone picks up a leaflet and goes, "Oh, I'm not actually interested in putting it back."
Well, you said there aren't leaflets. I thought there were leaflets.
No leaflets.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's been hopefully that will be a.
I mean, they're not going quite as far as they do for like discouraging rough sleeping. You know, you have to actually put spikes on infrastructure that people might reasonably be using.
No, I mean, I did kind of half think of that when I was describing it as making it inhospitable. But no, we're not doing that because we're not evil.
Well,
I'm not evil.
No, that's right.
So yes, so that's that'll be interesting. And then I've spent most of this week also doing the same for my other library. So hopefully we will be able to open with that soon, with people coming into my other library soon. So we are moving forward, but things on the horizon which might upset things a bit, which is a bit frustrating. But again, nobody's very good at communicating things, even the council. So anyway, that's that. So anyway, I'm not too bad otherwise.
What are you making?
What am I making?
Well, I know it's the same robot.
It's the same robot as me. So I've just fixed the leg. So last time I was having problems with the leg, the left leg. It wasn't quite going together at the back properly. I have now fixed that. That is now, so I have a wonderful pair of legs with...
Sorry, it sounds like an odd brag.
Are you saying I don't have a wonderful pair of legs, darling?
Your legs are perfectly lovely.
Thank you. I now have a pair of legs and some very giant flares. They've got rocket jets underneath, because that's what it looks like flares. I am currently working on the waist unit, and that is not a disposal unit. That is the bits where the legs stick in. So
I was going to say, is that waist with an eye or?
Yes, it's. Well, I'm sticking the armour pad plates on. It's got a very nice waist skirt. It's. So yes, I'm still.
Did you say waist skirt? Yeah, that's what skirts are.
We'll see.
Okay, we'll find out later.
Yes. So what are you doing?
I am continuing to sew my felt cowl for my 12 Days of Christmas thing. I have a few things I need to do. The sort of stitchwork brick I was doing before, I've now mostly done it. I just need to do the finishing touches, because they've actually contacted us and said that they want it back for this local history project by the 10th of August. October. Oh, where are we?
September, because so you'd have been really out of luck if it was
August was like 6 weeks long. It was like the longest month except for March. But yes. Yes, September. Although I'm still doing things I would normally be doing in August, but that's just, all this. But yes, so the 10th of October, so that should be fine to do. Also, I wasn't sure if I had to post it back, but I think you can take it to the church, which is nearby, but I don't know when they're open, because it said take it to the pastoral centre, and I'm like, this church looked quite closed. Well, I think last time I went, it said it was open for private prayer, and I thought I probably can't go in for other reasons. That seems like it'd be rude.
We'll find a time.
Or I can post it, I guess. It just seems weird to post it when it's walking distance away. I have to go to the sorting office and then come back. Yes, there's that. And then the other thing I want to do is make some more masks, because my mum made some based on a pattern that instructions from a friend of hers who lives near my parents. So she sort of sent me an email with this, and it was there was a lot of text and a lot of pictures, because she hadn't figured out how to put the pictures in the text in the email. And I looked at it and thought, this is hard to follow, so I think probably in July I went through and kind of made it into a PDF where the instructions were actually next to the pictures and then send that on, so that, because I thought my mum's friend might find that useful if she's letting people know. I think she'd originally been making masks for people and selling them, but the demand was such that she couldn't really keep up with that, so she was just saying to people, this is how you do it. So I've ordered some interfacing, I've had delivered some interfacing and some elastic, so I've got stuff to make more masks. I'm hoping I'll have enough actual cotton fabric to use. There's that dress I started to unpick, which I've only used part of, and then I've got some other old clothes
I'm sure
I haven't really used. We've got stuff around. I mean, I can order other fabric if I need to, but I've got quite a bit of general fabric around that I think I can use for stuff. So I'll have a go at making those, because the masks I made before worked for a while, but they were hand stitched. They weren't very sturdy. And I am getting one from work when I go back. But that's only one, and I've got a couple others that I've bought. But I thought if I make a few as well, then we've just got lots of options we can like wash and stuff. So yeah, that's sort of the next thing. I suppose I don't have a specific deadline on that. I just kind of want to get it done.
Right then, what was what were you reading?
Okay, well, because it's been 2 weeks, I have two things. I'm at least getting some more reading in now, so that's nice.
Yeah.
So there's Unseen Academicals by Terry Pratchett, which is one of the Discworld novels. So I sort of stopped reading Discworld at some point, a bit before the series actually ended. I think when was this published? Was it when I was at university and I was just like really busy doing university work?
It wasn't because lack of access, because.
Oh no, this is 2009. I can't do any time things apparently.
Okay.
Just consider 2009, so it would have been actually a bit after university. But I mean, I suppose I was working at the library reading a lot of other stuff, and I think so Unseen Academicals is kind of like, it's a wizardy one, although not as wizardy as I thought it might be, and it also seems to be about football. And like, the Wizards are my least favourite Discworld sub-series, and also I'm a bit meh on football, if I'm honest. Or sport in general, which is quite funny given parts of my job. I don't have to know about the sport bit, so yeah, I sort of think I didn't feel quite as compelled to read it, and then there was loads of other things to read, and then I sort of didn't kind of catch it, because you always have the new ones, so they're in the house, so I just thought I'd do it at some point, but then it just meant I haven't read some later ones, and I think actually the ones I read before this one I'd read quite fast, again probably while I was at uni, and so I didn't remember those very well, so I've kind of been going back to stuff and kind of revisiting some of the later Discworld stuff that it doesn't stick in my mind so well, and then so I'm going to try and read through sort of to the end gradually, but yes. So yeah, Unseen Academicals, it's sort of football already exists in Ankh-Morpork, but as a sort of like very rough game of the streets.
It's the originator football, kind of.
Oh, it's the idea you have like two villages and people just stab and attack each other. It's kind of that, and this big crowd. But then, and it's sort of about the wizards in that they're involved, but it's also more about kind of some of the staff at the Unseen University who you've not really seen before. So there's a few characters, sort of main characters, including someone who's from a particular species in the Discworld that's not come up before. But again, it's kind of sort of using football and to explore things like having leagues and rules, how being a fan works, how some people will just use any excuse for violence, and football is one that's there a lot, which is probably why I have not such great feelings about it. But then it's also looking at like class stuff a bit, and then also looking at, I guess, how people treat outsiders a bit, or like people, it's interesting. So there's quite a few characters. There's also quite a focus on female characters as well, because there's one of the main viewpoint characters is a cook in the university, and there's lots of stuff about her as well. So yeah, but you sort of said I should read this one before I read other ones. So I'm assuming some stuff that's in this book kind of turns up in later, at least Ankh-Morpork based ones. So I quite enjoyed it. It felt interesting, because I suppose it felt a bit different, because a lot of the other Discworld books kind of have characters you've met before. so you're sort of in familiar patterns, and this felt a bit different because the wizards were sort of there. The wizards were there, obviously. But then there was also a lot of the main characters you were focusing on who actually had development or interesting were kind of brand new, and the way the football was kind of brand new. So, and I was kind of, before reading it, I assumed it'd be a bit like soul music or moving pictures, one of those things that was a bit like, here is a thing from our world that's sort of taken over some stuff in the disc. And sort of, but it wasn't as much, there was an element to that, it wasn't as much like that as I think those other two.
No, I think there's more to it than just it's a one about football. I think that's
no, I realise.
That's the initial premise. That's the not quite the elevator pitch, but you know, it's Discworld does football is not quite.
Yeah, it's just, I suppose the cover is quite. Yeah. There's also quite a lot of stuff about Lord Vetinari as well. Because I think in the Moist von Lipwig books you get a bit more of him.
Yeah.
But then this one also had quite a lot about him as well, and you're sort of seeing more stuff about what he's doing, and then also stuff to do with, I guess, a character who's been mentioned a lot, but who's kind of almost considered his equal in a way. It's interesting anyway.
I think it's not. It's got more going for it than you might initially.
Yes. Then the other book I read, which was on Kindle, so I don't have a copy, was Green Man's Foe by Juliet McKenna, which was very good. It's the sort of second in her sort of Green Man urban fantasy series. So the first one's called Green Man's Heir. Although if you search for it on Amazon, it will write in Green Man's Hair, and you'll get a lot of green wigs, and it's quite tricky to find because I've had that problem. But yeah, those are sort of they're urban fantasy books. They're based around a character called Dan, who's a carpenter and also the son of a dryad. So he can see like some supernatural stuff, but mostly he's just trying to like have some work, you know, get a steady situation going. But he does a lot of like work in different places and things. So there's sort of like, and he tries to ignore the mystical stuff as much as he can, whilst obviously knowing it's kind of there because of, you know, inherited abilities he gets from his mother. But yeah, they're good books. They're well written, but I mean, Juliet's books tend to be good ones. So yes, I would certainly recommend the series as something like urban fantasy. Well, see, I said urban fantasy. It's not quite right because it's actually quite rural. I think contemporary fantasy. That's what I mean. I think just so much contemporary fantasy tends to end up being, like if it's British, it tends to be like urban fantasy. But so it's kind of more. Yeah, sorry, it's more contemporary fantasy, contemporary primary world fantasy.
If we want to stick labels on it.
Well, that's how you describe things. But yes, yeah. So the first one sort of is about him kind of finding a place to be. Then the second one's about him kind of going somewhere else and stuff. And there's usually some sort of like supernatural tinge mystery, and he has to kind of like tread a line between living his life and also like human authorities like the police and getting involved with that, but also trying to deal with stuff that's basically evil because he gets like kind of messages from the Green Man, who's this very mysterious figure, even to someone like Kit Dan, who kind of sort of gets him to do stuff by bothering him in his dreams, but also helps him out a bit. So yeah, the second one kind of expanded the folklore and introduced some more character stuff to that. So yeah, it's a good book.
Excellent. So I'm just concentrating on cleaning up some book.
Okay, because you're supposed to tell what you were reading.
Yeah, I know. I'm just. I finished. Make myself less of a. So, I did not read all of these. This is for illustrative purposes only. I finished reading The Silver Tide by Jen Williams. However, this is the third book in a trilogy, so we won't be so much talking about this one because spoilers.
Which one did we go to the book launch for? It wasn't the
Iron
first
Ghost.
one, definitely. Oh, was it? Okay.
I presume. Yes.
Okay. That was quite a while ago.
That's quite a while ago.
Well, they've been in the house for a while, haven't they, the books? So you just
Yes.
sort of...
Although, this we've got... She signed both of them, etc.
Did we go both? I don't remember which.
I'm just checking.
We went to the book launch for one of Jen's books, which is
I think
Downlands,
we went
and that
to
was
both
quite...
of them.
Did we go to both of them?
Well, she's...
But we might have seen her at, like... Was one of the launches at a convention? One was at Forbidden Planet.
February 15.
Okay.
And July 16. Anyway.
Was the July 16 one at a convention?
No.
I think we went to... Because in July 16 I would have been pregnant, and I think we only went to Emma Newman's when I was pregnant.
Did they not come to... Was it not...
Do you mean the thing at Waterstones? Maybe, yeah.
Wasn't that...
That was Jen and Den and...
Jen, Den and...
Pete Newman.
Pete Newman, yes.
Yes.
Yes, it was that.
Okay.
Because that was...
We're trying to figure out where we got books signed. Yes, before all this, and also a bit more before we had our son, we did used to go to conventions quite a bit, and there were a lot of like.
Because I think she asked if we wanted to dedicate it to the little one as well.
Okay, sure.
Because this one, but we didn't. Because we didn't. Anyway, that's we're getting.
I think you'll get confused with Emma Newman's one where she did dedicate it to him, but I was quite pregnant at that point, and that was the one.
Right. Okay. Yes, I'm getting confused. Yes.
Yes, that was the only book signing I went to in London when I was pregnant.
Moving on. I'll now talk about the books rather than talk about... So, instead we'll just discuss... So this is the trilogy, is the Copper Cat Trilogy. And the first one is The Copper Promise. So, there we go. Adrian Tchaikovsky describes it on the back, a fast-paced and original new voice in heroic fantasy, which I don't disagree entirely at all there.
I think new is perhaps like it's been around a while now. But
new at the time, yes. I mean,
I guess it's new to
2014. So,
yeah.
So so it starts with two characters. Well, actually, starts with Frith.
Three.
So it's Lord Frith, Aaron Frith,
Widrin,
Lord of the Blackwood.
You're the one who's literally just read it.
Yeah,
I read that
should
quite
have
a lot.
done. Yeah,
I've already read all the trilogy a while ago.
Widrin, the Copper Cat.
And Sebastian used to be a knight of some sort of mountain.
Three fellows, yes.
Okay.
And Sebastian.
I don't know characters' surnames. Possibly.
Yeah. We can't.
I was going to recommend Jen watch this.
Yeah, I was going to say at this point we can't. So, I'm sorry, Jen. Sorry.
It's alright. Just say what the book's about, Rob.
So and night. So yes, you have a lord of a member of the nobility. You have a rogue, and you have a knight, and the Lord Frith hires the other two to help him get into the citadel, where there is supposedly riches and magic,
secret ancient magic, and lots of danger.
Yes, and so this starts a chain reaction of events that,
Basically, they release a big ancient evil.
Yeah, they released an ancient evil god.
The world.
Dragon. I suppose it else is on the front. Yes. Ancient evil god, dragon god, gets loose. So, the three of them have to deal with that. It's full of adventure. It is,
I think the thing is, it sounds like it has a lot of very sort of general fantasy stuff, like adventurers and sort of what I think is a bit of a dungeon crawl thing,
a bit, yes,
and like a big dragon. But so it sounds like it's very traditional,
yeah,
but Jen does it in like a really good, fresh way.
Yes, it's kind of in so much pulpy, but again, it's a really good read.
Well, she's trying to make it fun.
Yes.
It's all real fun, but also not in a It's not necessarily it seems like it might be like something you read before, but it's not. And then each book has a new sort of they go to a different part of the world and face a different massive problem that they have to solve.
Not all of them of their own doing.
No, but I feel like their actions definitely have fairly major consequences. But
Yes.
so it's sort of like that, really.
And the characters are good. They are 3-dimensional characters. They've got flaws and dreams and wishes and I really I'm not used to having to sell books. This is my problem. My job doesn't require me to actually sell it that well on the basis that if you don't like it, you haven't paid for it. So lots of people will just try something because I suggest it. But anyway, try this. It's very good.
Well, they can still get it from a library. You're still not assisting people.
No, but my point is that I don't have to.
Oh, you don't have to. Yeah.
My job isn't a hard sell. It's a.
Well, it's usually like what kind of things you like, and we'll find a thing like that.
So it's a bit more. Anyway, very good, very very fun. Well, fast-paced, adventure, actiony.
But also with a good dose of like emotions and
Yes.
things. And as I say, a lot of inventive. So I'd say that the later books, some of the stuff that's in it, like the magical stuff. Like that first one's like dragon, but then there's some more complicated stuff, and then the ones that come after have more and more interesting, different things that aren't. We're not going to say because they take a bit description, also it's spoilery. But
don't like to spoil. That's the problem. I don't like to spoil because half the fun is reading through these. So it's fine. It's discovering for yourself. But yes, definitely well worth a read.
Mm-hmm.
I will have to go. So she's got another trilogy, which starts with the Ninth Reign. I can't remember.
The Winnowing Flame trilogy.
The Winnowing Flame trilogy. So we've got
Ninth Reign, which I've read, and then Poison's Song.
Yes.
If those are the right way around.
Those, something like that. So that's. She's also got a thriller coming out soon. Yes. There we go. I'll be interested. I'm not really a thriller reader, but I'll be willing to give it. It'd be interesting to see. Interesting to read that.
It's called. I think it's Dog Roaster in the UK. I think it's got a slightly different title in the US, and I can't remember what that is now.
No, I can't either.
We're probably going to buy the UK one. So.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that one. As I say, I'm not a thriller reader really, but
I find thriller to be quite a broad genre, just based on when I also worked in the library and have to put stickers on things.
I was going to say we could be here for a while discussing what is and isn't a thriller.
Well, sometimes it seems to be a bit like, is this something else and also a thriller? Well, we will put thriller on this, as that's a more popular genre.
When I first started in libraries, thriller was we had three sections at the start: crime, thriller, and adventure. And thriller was kind of just one press. It was mostly crime, and then adventure, and then thriller. And as time has gone on, the thriller section has just eaten the adventure section. Most things that used to be in the adventure sections are now thrillers, and even it's kind of taking a few bites out of the crime section. But the crime section's holding its own.
Yeah, well, it's thriller and crime. Kind of, if anything is that and something else, they'll always put that in. So if something's a historical crime, it'll be crime. If something's like science fiction, fantasy crime, it'll be crime.
For the most part,
because yes. Thriller same.
It sells better.
I've seen stuff that's like near future things, or that's obviously sci-fi in some way, and they put thriller on it, and I'm like, there's a mammoth and an airship on the cover of this, but alright, I guess it's on the cover and you know.
The entirety of Nora Roberts, R.J. Robb's In Death series is near future.
See, I had no idea from any of it, though.
But it sells better in crime.
Yeah.
And interestingly, as I say, it's not cited in this. I don't think it's science fictiony enough.
No, I suppose.
I think it's kind of just near future, but it's not. It's
not trying to be like full on.
Yeah. I mean, don't get again. I could be wrong. I haven't read any. If you have read, the In Death series and would like to correct me, feel free to. I understand they're quite good. People like them, but.
Yeah, I think it's just.
I do get the impression. I know they're future-y, but they're not.
I mean, based on because I feel like Adventure doesn't come out so much, but like based on little stickers that used to come from the booksellers or in the library, the thriller sticker is a gun, so it's kind of like is there a revolver in this? Is that the definition? Probably not. And the adventure sticker was like a person running with a target on them. So as far as I could tell, the thriller was that doing the shooting, and the adventure was getting shots.
Yeah, I think, and then
adventure became quite rare.
Pretty rare now.
Yeah,
there's a few Clive Cussler still in there.
Are those not thriller? I feel like some of those are thriller.
Yeah, some of those are thriller, but So anyway, that's enough of library classifications.
Yes.
Jen Williams' books, very good. Read them. Terry Pratchett books, also very good. Read them too. Anyway, on to the main topic.
Yes.
Unsurprisingly, having a toddler in the house, we have seen a reasonable amount of CBeebies shows. So we thought we'd chat about our favourites, why we think they're actually good.
Sure.
Possibly touch upon the ones that we think are terrible because. Wow.
Well, we'll see how we go. Sorry, I've just realised that my cow's leg is I'm having to unpick a little bit. Yeah. It's at a weird angle. So CBeebies is basically the BBC channel for under sevens. And it's very good because when we were children, there wasn't a whole channel for children's things, and there was just like a section on after school. And I think there was some younger kid stuff and then some older kid stuff, and it's all together. I mean, I don't remember that.
Play school.
But when I was growing up, my mum used to look after other children, so I used to watch stuff for younger kids when I was older because it was on. So CBeebies is it's very good. It's, as far as I know, I think it's the main non-commercial kids channel that there is. So my manager, whose daughter is in our meetings quite a bit at the moment on Zoom. At one point I was saying about watching, and he was saying he was getting a bit fed up of watching CBeebies. But on the other hand, he did say it was less bad than the other things on offer. Now, we don't really watch any commercial kids TV channels because I don't really need them to be seeing a load of adverts for a lot of what's probably plastic tat. That we
have a plastic tat in the house.
We do have a lot of plastic tat in the house.
He says he puts together
the owner of a lot of the plastic tat.
It's not tat. It's lovely painted for a lot of it, or giant robots.
I think some of it is metal and resin as well. But
yeah, that's not tat. Quite often I spend a lot of money on. It's not.
It's fine.
Where's Manel when you need him to defend me? Help me, Manel.
Yes, but another colleague was saying that she saw an advert for some children's stuff.
To be honest,
it was tat.
Yeah,
and I mean,
stuff is tat.
Yeah. I don't see adverts for children's for toys. I think that's probably fine. I'm fine with that. And he doesn't need to, because anything advertised on CBeebies is other CBeebies stuff, so that's fine. And so all the in between bits of programs are like, let's talk about shapes or sing a song about sharing, and that's fine. And it's all just really nice. I did. I think it was in January of 2019, probably. Yeah. I did a post for Skippy and Fancy Show, which is mostly podcast I listen to, but they also do some video stuff, and they have a lot of blogs and stuff. And one thing was they're asking for a post about what brings people joy. They're trying to do a month of joy. And I was there going, what does? What even does? That was in 19, so what did I know? But I thought, well, actually, these kids shows are nice, because there's lots of, it's high quality, so a lot of it's done by CB, it's done by production companies, but it's commissioned for CBeebies. But some of it's obviously from other countries as well, and they bring in, I think there's a lot of co-productions. But yeah, it's good quality kids shows, and it is educational. It is educational, but it's also quite often fun. So yes. And what are some favourites you thought we would discuss?
Or we might as well just start with the high watermark of Hey Duggee. Personally, but Hey Duggee is the pinnacle of CBeebies cartoons, and it's quite cool. So Hey Duggee is about Duggee, who runs the Squirrel Club.
We should have brought the toys down.
We should have done, yes. Squirrel Club is kind of like a daycare, nursery, after school club, cross with scouts. So they tend to get badges, but they always get a badge every episode. So these are 7-minute episodes, so they're nice and compact. They get a badge for whatever they're doing. So it's a little strange because they're all
animals.
Anthropomorphized animals.
But none of them squirrels. That's just the name of the club.
But there are squirrels in it. But then some of the but then some of them are, so they're all the same size. So there is Betty the octopus, Nori the mouse, Tag the rhino, Happy the crocodiles, but I'd say elephant, but his parents are elephants.
His parents are elephants. That
may be there, because inclusivity. And Rolly the hippopotamus. But they're all the same size. And Duggie's bigger.
Duggie's a dog, but he's not. Basically, you
cannot... And all he ever says is, oh, woof, or woof. Just in various tones.
But so it's narrated by Alexander Armstrong, who does Pointless, but he's doing a slightly different voice. So quite often the narrator kind of responds to what Doug is saying, so you can tell it was he just said. But yeah, you can't watch it. There's no sense of any kind of zoological or geographical consistency. Like, Nori is a mouse, but she's the same size as all the other characters. But then there are also the naughty mice that appear every so often who are tiny and actually kind of roughly mouse size.
Yeah.
So yeah, stuff like that. It's just it's bright, it's fun, it's sort of silly, but in like a really fun way. It's the animation style is quite distinctive, and they do some quite clever stuff with it. So sometimes each character's got a reasonably basic design, but there's sometimes they simplify them down even more. So have a thing where they're all just like lines or sort of shapes abstractly.
Yeah.
But they do stuff like, they did a puppet show, and they actually like made little puppets, and then they had the thing where they did the puppet show, and it was actually obviously filming the sort of homemade puppets they'd made. They did a thing where they were doing, I think it was the pottery badge, where they all made like cups, and somebody obviously made these sort of like things that supposed to be crappily made cups made by these child animal characters, and then they just obviously took pictures of that sort of thing, so they're willing to mix up the art style a bit. And then there's kind of a whole community around it, so they'll encounter various characters who obviously live wherever the hell this is, because the geography just changes. And so there'll be a lot of characters that will turn up, like the delivery gopher or something. It always says package for the squiggles, and because you can never get the name right. And then there's stuff like there's Henny, the 20-foot bird, who's a gigantic bird, but they're all mates with her, even though she's enormous. And I feel like she's so big that if I were actually a small child, I would have felt quite alarmed by her. There's Mr. and Mr. Crab. There's King Tiger. There's the panda whose name I forget.
Choo Choo?
Choo Choo? Yeah, that sounds about right.
The chickens on the...
There's Duggee sort of lives on a farm, or I think it's like a small holding, because there are sheep. At one point, there were chickens.
Enid the cat.
Enid the cat lives at the clubhouse. She's there a lot.
So it's a lot of, they often go around.
It's quite often helping.
Yeah, lots of helping, lots of friendship stuff. But also, I mean, they just throw in stuff, obviously, again, for the adults to watch. Because there's the riverboat badge, which basically riffs off Apocalypse Now.
So I watched it. I've seen part of Apocalypse Now, and I've seen a lot of things that are based on it. It's one of those things where you've seen the parody of stuff enough that you're like, oh, this is the thing. And I couldn't figure out at first why Duggee appeared to be stubbly, and he was in a room with the blinds half open, and then they're taking a package on the riverboat. And then, then some stuff is just like the characters being themselves and they're going on a cute little riverboat trip to take a package somewhere. Fine. And then there's a bit where there's all these frogs, and they start saying things, and then somebody falls in the water and that rises out of it. And I'm like, oh, it's this.
It's just riffing off
Now.
Apocalypse Now.
That's the riverboat badge. There's a spooky badge where they're all in costume because it's Halloween, but they're all dressed as the characters from Scooby-Doo, and no one mentions it. There's just, if you look at their outfits, it's like, okay. So yeah, I mean, they probably couldn't mention it for like licensing reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite fun. There's also a lot of people like the Stick badge because of the song, because there's basically a rave in it, because the Stick sings the song, and then the children go home, and then the Doug is basically at a rave.
Yeah. As I say, there's and it's also amusing that they quite often reference episodes that you haven't seen because they haven't done them. It's like, but I like that kind of background. It's like, and there was the force field badge. Force field badge.
Well, I mean, the badges get probably so the stuff like.
But there's
the sheep badge, the counting badge.
There's some very simple ones, and then there's the random ones like
the philosophy
badge or the future badge, and they just do really random things, but it's all such good fun.
Yeah, like sometimes it's clear that Duggee has prepared on this particular thing. So sometimes it's like pure education. It's like the water badge kind of explains the water cycle, or the tree badge explains they go from the roots up through the trunk to the leaves of the tree. So that's just explaining a tree to you. But then there's ones like the pizza badge, and I think sometimes there's ones where Duggee's actually probably planned something else and they end up doing this. So they do the pizza badge, and it sort of ends up being a matter of like, well, this is how you might run a pizza restaurant, sort of. And like, can you match the type of pizza to the animal that ordered it? So that's sort of fun. And then, and some of it's like... And then their families are involved a little bit, so you meet there's a grandparent badge, someone's grandparent turns up and Dougie's prepared something very nice and calm for them, and nobody's grandparent is like that. And then you occasionally see people and every episode starts with one of them playing at home, and it's like, you know what time it is? Duggee! And then they run out, and then it shows them all leaving their houses, going by various forms of transport to Squirrel Club. And then going in, and then the end is always like they get their badge, their parents come to pick them up, they have a Duggee hug, and then they go and hug their parents and show them the badge they got, and then they all drive off. So I say drive off, some of them are bikes, some of them are buses, but so it's formulaic, but they do a lot within it, and considering they're short episodes, they're very good.
There's a lot in there, and they don't drag it out for long. I think that's the other thing. It's not. If there's a joke in there, it's not dragged out for too long as a. I like Hey Duggee. There is some lots of.
We like it. Our son really liked it at first. He doesn't seem as keen on it now. So if it's on, he'll watch it, but it's not one he asks for. No. Although we do have some toys for it and stuff. So
shall we cover the one he does ask?
Yeah, I was about to say. So the one. Literally, I was getting ready for bed earlier. He was sad that no one would call him Octonaut. And I tried to explain that the Octonauts don't call each other Octonaut, and that it's not a name. So our son really likes Octonauts. He's quite into stuff about the sea, which I think is partly because he said the word octopus when he was quite young, and we all got a little bit over enthusiastic about it. So I say looking at the gigantic toy octopus. It's just
that's not our fault.
No, that's your brother's fault.
That's my brother's fault, and he knows it.
Octonauts is basically a sort of more of an adventurous kids show. Are the episodes slightly longer than Duggee? I think they're a bit longer.
They're a bit longer, yeah.
But they're still like 10
minutes, yeah.
The Octonauts is some sort of aquatic organisation. Their sort of mission statement is explore, rescue, protect. They live in something called the Octopod, which is like an underwater base in the rough shape of an octopus. And they've basically got a captain, who's Captain Barnacles, and he's a polar bear. There's Quasi, who's, according to the books, he's the lieutenant. I don't think anyone ever says lieutenant on a TV show, but they're based off books. And he's a cat.
The books are quite different, though.
Yes. He's a cat who's also a pirate.
Because they call Quasi Kitten. And I think anyone who'd cause Quasi a kitten would most likely not.
He usually identifies as a pirate, which I think is more of a cultural thing. But any cat we see is also a pirate, but also a relative of Quasi's. It's not clear. Quasi has some sort of cultural background as being a pirate, which doesn't seem to mean stealing things. So I think it's like a cultural thing rather than actively doing stuff thing. But he's like the exploring adventurous character. Captain Barnacles is basically like if Captain Picard from Next Generation were a polar bear and lived under the sea. And less Shakespeare. But yeah, basically that. I have thought of too many parallels between Octonauts and TNG. Anyway, and then there's Peso the Penguin, who's the medic. Probably because penguins don't become doctors. He does all the medical stuff. There's Tweet the Rabbit, she's the engineer. There's Dashy the dog, who's the communication and media person.
Yeah.
There's Shellington, who's the sort of scientist character. There's Professor Inkling, who's an octopus, who I assume is bankroll. He seems to be the academic, so him and Shellington between them seem to know a lot of stuff. But where Shellington has a lab, he has a library. He also has a monocle, and I think he's bankrolling the whole thing, which is probably why it's so octopus-based.
Yeah, I mean...
And then they have a load of servants called the Vegemals, that are basically vegetable animals.
Vegetable fish hybrids.
Who do all their cooking and chores.
And they really aren't explained.
Well, they do. Shallington explains how he found them, but
that's it. That's all we get as you know.
I mean, they're not in his lab, but it's also a bit like, oh, they're our friends. Like, they do all your work. They're your servants at best, because I don't know what the pay structure of this is. But anyway, so the Octonauts will be either they'll have like a particular mission they're trying to do, involve an aquatic creature, or they'll run across something that involves an aquatic creature. So it'll be like the bowhead Octonauts and the bowhead whales. And in that one, some narwhals and Captain Barnacles get trapped behind some ice and can't get to air, but somebody's already met some bowhead whales, and their whales have massive heads, and so they break the ice. We know the names of lots of kind of whales now.
Yeah.
It's very educational. You learn quite a bit of stuff about things under the sea, including things that are hard to say, like siphonophore.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do the fish with the long name, but that one's there. So our son's really into it, and he kind of... For a while, when he wouldn't say his own name, because I did give him one that's slightly tricky to say, and he's still figuring that out, if we asked him what his name was, he'd just say Octonaut. We'd be like, I'm an Octonaut. You're like, all right then. So he's just really into it. I mean, it is quite a nice show. There's lots of stuff about teamwork. I mean, like I say, it being like TNG, Quasi is sort of like Worf, but in a show where there's no violence. So Quasi is kind of the character who knows how to sword fight and will be daring and adventurous and a bit...
Whenever they get into a situation, Captain Barnacles is there usually going, right, and first we need to do this, and then it cuts away to Quasi just swimming off to cause problems.
He's quite impetuous and impatient. He's also the one who'll be a bit like... There'll quite be a thing that's like, oh, we found an abandoned wreck, and he'll be like, there's a sea monster here, there's an old pirate legend about a sea monster, and everyone will be a bit like, Quasi, there's no such thing as sea monsters, what? But like... There'll be, well, actually I think Barnacles usually just ignores it when he says stuff like that. He goes, let's go look into it. And Shellington will be like ready to actually look at it with science. And the only person who thinks it's a sea monster is probably Peso, despite the fact that he is a medic and therefore knows about medical stuff. And then it will turn out, oh, it wasn't a sea monster, it was actually a creature that lives in the sea already.
That has the same characteristics as the sea monster. Shocking.
Yeah, so Quasi kind of provides the kind of like background stuff, but you sort of over the course of the series is you do meet various family members, so like the siblings or parents or nieces and nephews of and in one case grandfather of various characters. Again, Quasi is the main one whose background gets explored, which is also why he's like Worf.
Yes.
It's a bit like there's this whole big family thing that's ongoing to do with his culture that he seems quite obsessed with, and occasionally seems to be slightly at odds with him being an Octonaut, but not really, because there's not that much conflict in it. But yeah, so there's usually helping stuff, and then sometimes, and also the other thing that's nice with it is that whenever an animal kind of threatens things, even the Octonauts themselves like trying to eat them, no one ever, it's like, oh well, that's just how, like, this shark is obviously going to try and eat us. It's a shark, so we'll have to just do something to try and get around. Yeah, we have to work around the problem and sort the problem out, usually with teamwork and ingenuity.
Yes.
So yeah, these are all good messages. They also do a lot, so there's different accents in it. And if you watch the Netflix version, there's different accents to the CBeebies version, because the CBeebies version, one of the Peso just sounds British, but then in the Netflix, I think US version, or another version, he's a lot more, well, he's got a kind of a Hispanic accent of some kind. But then again, Dashi sounds more American in the American one, but she's, I think, New Zealand in the UK one. There's also the fact that they have a lot of the animals they meet have different accents, which is fine. But there's a lot of regional accents. I'm pretty sure the lionfish were Brummie.
They were, yes.
Yes. That's another thing. Like, lionfish are in the wrong part of the ocean, and that's a problem. So they're going to move the lionfish back to the part of the ocean that they should be in, so they don't cause an environmental problem. And then the lionfish keep like swimming around, causing problems, and trying to eat the other fish they're transporting. But again, they don't judge them for it; they just work around it. But I was there going, I'm pretty sure these lionfish are Brummie. Why? But I'm sure in the American one they're not Brummie. And there's also odd stuff, like there's the lemon shark that has like one of those Californian "hey dude" kind of I'm not going to do the accent, but one of those kind of accents. But for some reason, it's less pronounced in one version than the other.
Yeah.
Which was the one that kind of confused me a bit. But yeah, so the walruses are Scousers though.
That makes perfect sense.
Like they're just Scousers, like because they get a bit aggressive, and I'm like almost expecting them to go, all right, like those Harry Enfield sketches used to be. They don't quite do that, but
no.
yeah. So yeah, but yeah, it's a fun program, and
yeah,
our son's quite obsessed with it.
Yes, he wants to be an Octonaut, and
he wants to specifically be Captain Barnacles. In fact, if he has to do any kind of heavy lifting, he says he has polar bear strength.
Yes,
but yes.
I mean, to be fair, as life goals go, I'm good with it.
Yeah, like he seems like a pretty good kind of
as a role model goes.
Yeah, role model.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So
it's probably a shame we don't live closer to the sea.
Yeah.
So the thing you ask me what to be, it's like an Octonaut, and I'm like, I'm going to read this as some sort of marine biologist.
Yeah, he might be.
Or maybe the captain of a submarine. Oh, I'm not sure I like submarine captains so much.
He might be disappointed about the lack of fancy technology that goes into being a marine biologist. Although they have some nice submersibles, but they don't have gups. So the gups are the
oh, the little ships.
Yeah, so yes. So Octonauts, another excellent entry in the.
Are there any things you don't particularly like? Not that you watch as much as I do.
No.
Tend to be the one that sits there and watches it.
I really get wound up by. Well, I get wound up. So there was one. So there's Something Special, which stars Justin Fletcher and Mr. Tumble. I don't like Mr. Tumble. So Something Special. Justin Fletcher goes around with some
Sends children.
Thank you.
Like, what's the polite way of saying it? They're not always that, but they are largely.
And they go and do things. So he takes his friends and he goes and does things with them. So one of them
they
is
went
actually
to the library in our city.
It's the main central library, or they go to a farm, or they go and they
train,
and they learn things, and there's simple signs in there.
Maccathon.
And that's great, you know. It introduces signs, and it normalises a lot of things. And I don't like Mr. Tumble. Mr. Tumble is Justin Fletcher's alter ego, who's a silly clown type character. I just don't like him.
He's not. You're not target audience.
I know, but I think that I don't know why they put that in as a framing device. Why you need Mr. Tumble there?
Because Mr. Tumble is funny and Mr. Tumble makes them laugh. They say it every episode.
I think,
I don't know who they're trying to convince, but probably.
I think you could have taken Something Special, just had that without the Mr. Tumble element, and it would have been fine as a program.
It'd be shorter, but I think Mr. Tumble's just there to reflect. I don't know. Just has a different
I just don't.
The thing with CBeebies shows is they're obviously all very well made, and they usually have reasons for why they do what they're doing. Like, I think there's a lot of child development and knowledge about that sort of thing behind it.
Yeah, I just find that bit of, and obviously I dislike Justin's House.
Yeah.
Just so.
I mean, how much Justin's House do you sing? Because I'm sitting in here when it's on.
A lot less
most of
than you have, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I didn't used to really let him watch Justin's House so much. It did seem a little bit. It's a lot more. It's weirdly where Justin Fletcher's acting more like Mr. Tumble, and there's a robot in it and stuff. But
it's basically
it's very slapsticky and stuff.
Yes.
I mean, it's very good for kids. There's a lot of people getting like cream cakes in their heads.
I think, but I think that also comes down to what I used to. I never used to watch that sort of stuff as a child because
we didn't watch things where people got chucked into gunge.
Generally not. Other than we used to watch Noel's House Party. That was like the only concession.
That wasn't actually for children.
No, that was the only concession we ever had to seeing people get gunged. But no, none of the kids shows and that. You remember we've had various conversations about my what my TV.
What they get your own back?
Nope.
Or what was the other one with the gunge? Stuff with Dave Benson Phillips in.
Nope. None of that.
Okay. Well,
was it on the BBC?
I think so. Yeah.
Still none of that. So I'm not a big fan of those kind of silly programs. So yes, I don't get along with those.
Okay.
Anything else I don't particularly.
So I wouldn't say like I massively like those, but they're fine. I'll sit in the room while they're on.
In the Night Garden, but that's really just. That's definitely not.
Yeah, I'm not so much interested in Night Garden. I kind of see how it works, and like each character is supposed to be like some level of toddler development. It's just I think we're supposed to like Iggle Piggle, and I do not like him.
No, he's an arse.
I think it's just the episode where he kept getting into Upsy Daisy's bed without her permission, and she kept telling him that only Upsy Daisy was allowed in Upsy Daisy's bed, and he kept doing it again, and then at the end, like, he barely apologised, and she was just like, oh, I'll kiss you on the cheek, and now we're friends again. And also the main female character, or the main character is identifiably and obviously femme, is always kissing everyone,
I think,
and it's like...
Yeah. I think it's just, it doesn't seem to be anything there.
Well, I think it's actually a lot there. I think it's like with Teletubbies, like, it's not for adults.
I know.
So, it's for children, and
I just don't.
A friend of ours explained that various different characters in it are supposed to be different ages, and that's why some of them can move better than others, because the ones with the quite large, lower proportions are always falling over are supposed to be toddlers, because, they fall over a lot. So, yeah.
That's not my... So yes, I would acknowledge I know it's not for me, but I won't sit and watch it unless I have to. And I appreciate that
Is this why he usually wants to watch TV with Mummy?
Yes, more than likely.
Yeah. I mean, they do other stuff. So they do CBeebies Proms, they do CBeebies Panto, which is usually kind of... They also do CBeebies Shakespeare, which is quite interesting, where they actually have a guy who plays William Shakespeare, who explains to another character what's happening. And they do actual Shakespeare bits, and they just, they skip some bits and all of it. So they did The Tempest, and the main, which I did do at A-level, and the main thing I noticed they changed it is when Caliban says, what was it, you taught me your language, learn me your language, and my profit on it is that I learned how to curse. Well, they just changed that to complain, because it's for 7 and under. But a lot of that was still very similar, and explaining what's happening. They also did Midsummer Night's Dream, but they took out any reference to any kind of killing whatsoever. So the premise of this was quite different. And yeah, that was actually quite fun, because in that, Justin Fletcher played Bottom, and there's the scene where Bottom says he wants to play all the characters. Justin Fletcher is always the pantomime dame. Justin Fletcher also, as well as playing Mr. Tumble, plays various other characters in Something Special. There's also a thing called Giggle Biz, which I've only let Nathaniel watch twice, which seems to be a sketch show, which is Justin Fletcher plays a different character in each bit, and then there are some other people. And I was just there, like, was like, oh, I'll play this. I was like, this is their production meetings, isn't it? Which made it even funnier. But yeah, I'm not sure how much Nathaniel like that, but I was like, oh no, this is a reason.
I think that they do that. So
yeah. So these movies, I think. The only one I've seen that I actually really didn't like, and it's on very early in the morning, so I've only seen it like once or twice when he woke us up. He usually sleeps quite well now, but when he was younger and he woke us up particularly early, and I just sort of had taken notice. There's a thing called Baby Jake, but that's just because the design on that thing just looks like a nightmare. There seem to be like 10 children or 7 children, and they all live with their parents in a windmill. And then the youngest one's baby, so it seems to be the second youngest kid who's a toddler, and then the youngest who's Baby Jake. And it shows this boy with this, like, these are real actors in the thing. And then suddenly it changes into this weird, that thing where they take photographs and they use them to animate stuff?
Yeah.
It's sort of like that, and it's just, I only watched a couple of bits of it, and I'm like, what is this? It's too early, and my brain needs washing. And it just, it was just really creepy looking. It was like incredibly Uncanny Valley with the animation. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I do not like this. See?
No, fair enough. We can... yes, we don't do early morning telly, so... so they do a lot of, there's lots of...
We watched the other day. That's there's just a lot of stuff that's very educational but quite fun. But like some of it's obviously educational and some of it's less so. So
yeah,
like,
so...
Do you know, this woman just goes and explains how everything works. You're like, I didn't know how hot water actually worked. You just tell and tap and it's there, but she told us.
But then you got things like, Numberblocks and Alphablocks is...
Yeah.
I think... Possibly Numberblocks is better than Alphablocks, but...
Maybe. Although he has started making some of the noises. We need to figure out this phonics thing at some point.
But,
all the letters sound different now than when we were children.
So Numberblocks is basically
maths.
But, they actually run a bit of a story behind it, and, they do interesting things with the numbers. So that's...
Do you think that... you don't like something special, or Justin's House, because it is not teach you anything, it's just entertainment? Or do you think it's the way it is?
I think it's the way it is.
Sure. Because I quite also like Swashbuckle as well, which he liked for a little bit.
I've got no problem with Swashbuckle.
Swashbuckle is basically like one of those physical activity game shows. So you have like 4 kids. 3 kids?
4 kids.
4 kids, yes. And basically the conceit is this woman called Jen who had some jewels, and then pirates took them, and then they got shipwrecked on an island. So she's trying to get her jewels back from the naughty pirates. So there'll be a captain who changes between series, and then there's the 2 sort of stupid minion characters, hook and line. And basically the children have to do various things, and then the pirates try to stop them, and then they win jewels, and then they have to go through this big obstacle course and get the jewels. And at the end, some of the pirates fall in gunge. So you're not really learning anything, but it's quite fun.
I don't.
Fun pirate adventure. Also, my favourite captain is Captain because she's amazing. It's probably just because I saw her first in the Tempest one, because she was the person that Will Shakespeare's explaining the Tempest to. But also, yeah, it's one of those ones where I actually looked at the actress on Twitter, and she seems to be a reasonable person as well. I was like, I'm just going to follow this lady because she seems quite impressive.
Yeah, I don't mind so much the end. I mean, things like Katie Morag and.
But that's based on those books. We had Katie Morag book when I was a kid.
And the one in the big hub.
Molly and Mag.
I don't so much have. I mean, yeah, some of them annoy me more than others.
I mean, a lot of them are just like, some of them are obviously educational, some of them are obviously entertainment, and some of them sort of do a line between. But I suppose in some respects, everything's kind of learning through play anyway. Yeah. So you see, but it's just, I think, nice in general how a lot of stuff is about there's a problem, let's solve the team, or can we work stuff out, or just I don't think a lot of stuff's so cynical, and there's literally no cynicism anywhere in it.
Sarah and Duck.
Nice. Sarah and Duck is weird and random, but it's quite nice. We were going to go see a stage show of it in April, but obviously April, so it didn't happen.
Yeah, I think there's lots of good stuff. Lots of representation. So they're showing. So there's the one about the autistic child that draws. I can't remember what it's called now.
Pablo?
Yes.
Is he autistic?
I think he's autistic.
I have no idea. He has a load of friends that are animal drawings, but...
I think at the start it implies he's got... I think he's autistic, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's how he relates to the world.
Oh, okay. I must have missed the nuance in that. I'm quite often quite tired when I'm watching those things. Or if I'm honest, half watching and I'm kind of on my phone.
But there's also... there's various ones where they look at different cultures as well.
Yeah, there are a few like that, like the Around the World one.
I think it's a lot. There's a lot of good stuff for starting out to teaching.
Yes.
Well,
also, I know you don't like something special, but so I've got a family member who's quite severely disabled and uses sign is deaf and also has other disabilities as well, but he uses sign language. So I do try to say to our son, it's like what he does.
I like something special. Those bits of it. I don't like the Mr. Tumble parts of it.
It's sort of yes. So. Yeah. But in some respects, it's like Justin sort of showing you how a thing is, and then Mr. Tumble is playing, and kids learn better through play.
I think
people learn better through play. It's just saying.
I just say that I fully support the other bit of it is just I get annoyed by Mr. Tumble.
Do you have any thoughts about any of the presenters? Because I read a thing where somebody talking in defence of CBeebies, and they're like, every parent I know has a crush on at least one CBeebies presenter. I'm like, well, I don't, but I don't get crushes very easily. But just the general thing with the presenters.
I think they're good. Let's be honest. I have a lot of respect for anyone working in those sort of professions.
You do an element of that.
No, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, having done regular story times and preschool activities, I know how difficult it is to do. And admittedly, they don't have an audience, and that's actually even more difficult. So if you're doing it to an audience, you can actually see reactions. You can see they're all just doing it to the camera, and it's all very simplified. It's all very things that as adults we just it seems ridiculous, but it's important to
Yeah, there's a whole one about how to do a zip.
Yeah, but
zips are tricky.
So it's got to be difficult to keep doing that day after day, but also keep up the.
I mean, they do recycle a lot of this.
Yeah, I know, but you still got to go in. They've still got to do a lot of it.
Yeah.
But you also got to have the enthusiasm, the.
Yeah, it's kind of always being on.
Yeah.
It's interesting actually because during lockdown they obviously started just like I guess they sent cameras to people and they started doing it in their houses. So you just see like part of this person's house that they've obviously decorated and they're just doing a thing, or like the one guy had it in his garden. Yeah. And then the woman who's doing all the sounds.
So I mean I don't know enough.
There's also a puppet.
I don't know enough about them to really have a particular favourite, but I have a lot of respect for what they do, and you know they seem competent in what they do.
Yeah. Have you watched any of the bedtime story ones? So CBeebies at the end of the day, which is like 10/7, 5/7. No. Yes.
No.
Always has bedtime story, which is quite often read by like a CBeebies person or a BBC person, but sometimes there's quite famous people doing them as well. Dolly Parton did one. Tom Hardy's done some. Chris Evans. Yeah. I've seen the Chris Evans.
I did read. So I did when. When they started doing it.
Also, various people I think define the celebrities, and I don't really know who they are.
They kind of started farming out to see whether they get a few more people to do it, or was it someone came and I think a big name, if I remember correctly, a big name celebrity, and I can't remember what it was, actually came to them and said, "I want to do one of your bedtime stories," because their child loved them so much they wanted to get involved, and suddenly they found that actually if they went to a lot of these celebrities and said, "Hi, would you record a bedtime story for us?" A lot of them have got kids, and so went, yeah, not a problem, you know, and you know they'd go into the studio for, you know, half a day and record their bedtime story. So yes, they've got a lot of big names.
Yeah, we saw the part one because I think we came into it and it already started. So because basically they'll read a book, like a pre-existing published book, so they'll read it. So there'll be like the person reading it, and then they'll be like they'll have a picture of the page as well. So it's not just the person reading it the whole time. Dolly Parton was listening to it, and I was like, wait a second, I recognise that voice. It's like, oh, it's Dolly Parton, but obviously she is big on children's literacy, so she gives away so many books and stuff. It's generally very impressive. And
the issue is quite often something related to what they're famous for. So the Chris Evans one was a superhero one.
I don't know if it always is.
I think it's not always one that they.
What's Tom? What child-friendly thing is Tom Hardy known for? Because the one I saw was about a party and like people wearing hats.
But the Tom Hardy, a lot of them are not. They're not doing it for the children.
Bronson.
Let's put it this way: it's become very popular that with a lot of mummies. Because
so look, is Tom Hardy reading a bedtime story?
You know, so no, I think the bedtime stories is quite a nice little.
Well, when there's somebody who I don't know who they are, but like I feel like there's a lot of actors who just do a lot of things and they'll just read a story. I don't know if it always relates to a particular thing.
Okay, I think sometimes it does. So yeah.
I mean, yeah, the Chris Evans one I think, but that's the main one I can think of. Most of the other ones I wouldn't say they relate to anything particular.
Anyway, so yeah, those are quite nice.
Yes. That's when there's always talk about what the BBC should be doing and like should people pay the licence fee and stuff. And it's like we need to keep CBeebies, Jesus Christ. It's like how will any of us with the small people survive?
Yes, there has been a lot of, you know, we have stuck him in front of CBeebies more than we would have done given a choice. But,
I mean, it seemed like you get work done.
But on the other hand, it's mostly educational, so that's has.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. It's good quality stuff. He's not going to come and say, "I want you to buy like a load of random stuff," because he doesn't see adverts. Although at some point, I think we're going to have to train him in adverts. But
yeah, well,
it's all right. My dad mentioned to me how adverts worked, and I just couldn't unsee it. It's like just imagine the toy without all the cool stuff in the background of the advert. Is it any good? It's like it's very good.
Anyway. I think we should be wrapping this up. It's like 20 to 10 now.
Oh, okay, sure. Yes.
You'll put the milk bottles out.
Yes, no, I did hear that. I've almost finished the cow's leg now.
I have finished the most of the waist unit. I've got the 2 side panels. That is the waist skirt.
Is that the front or the back?
That's the back.
Okay.
So
maybe sporring or something.
There we go. We have that's and it's got sections that pop out the back. Because, you know, it has gimmicks like that. Should that pop out?
Before we started filming, Dave was explaining to me about the different the grading system there is for these kind of models, and it seems to be to do with size and complexity, and also how fancy and difficult the stickers are.
Pretty much. This is a real grade, which is smaller than a master grade, but just as complicated. But not quite as complicated as a perfect grade, which are quite big and complicated, but not necessarily as quite as good. Basically, I've talked myself out of buying bigger and shinier models.
Yes. Okay, so there we go. I've done it. I just need to start, but I've now stitched around my entire cow. I had to do some unpicking there before because 2 of the legs were kind of like bumping into each other because I hadn't pinned it very well. But yes, the cow is now very firmly attached. So I need to decide what decoration I'm putting on the cow, and then also I think have some sort of pail of milk somewhere. But yeah, so the cow's almost done.
I presume it's going to have some patches on it.
I haven't decided on quite how the final look of the cow is going to be. I've got the shape of the cow, so I think I'll do some figure out decoration at some point. The one I took it off of as used as the thing was just an outline, so it didn't have any pattern on. But we'll see how we go.
There we go. Anyway, thank you for watching. We will be back. Might be next week. As previously mentioned, we're not that organised to think in advance.
Well, I think I'm a bit more organised, but recently hasn't felt like the best time. There's been a lot of other things happening.
We've had other stuff going on, so and colds, so
colds, building work.
Yeah, but anyway, thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Stay safe.